Billionaire and New York Times shareholder Carlos Slim is involved in a major lawsuit, including a major bank, JP Morgan. The Wall Street Journal is covering the story. Bloomberg is covering the story, but the New York Times staying silent. Well, joining me now from New York, editor James Ledbetter, the man who came up with the theory that the New York Times will not ever tell this story. Hi there, James. So you wrote that this is a scandalous story involving one of the world's largest banks, powerful federal judge, two Mexican telecom giants. I want you to break this down for us. What's going on here?
Sure. At the center of this very juicy story is Grupo Televisa, which is one of the largest TV companies in Mexico, and its division called Cablevisión. A couple of years ago, Cablevisión wanted to get about a $250 million loan through its bank, JP Morgan. They've been working with JP Morgan for more than 20 years. But because of the worldwide credit crisis, they had trouble structuring the loan. JP Morgan came to them and said, "We're going to do this for you, but we want you to use this other bank." Now, it turns out this other bank is controlled by, is part of the financial empire run by Carlos Slim, who is one of the wealthiest men in the world, by some counts the wealthiest man in the world, who happens to own Grupo Televisa's largest rival, Telemex. And the conditions placed on this loan required Grupo Televisa to disclose all sorts of strategic information about where they're investing, how much they have invested in particular places in Mexico, the kind of information you would never give to your largest competitor. A highly, highly strange situation. So a lawsuit came out of that, and in late January, this is a lawsuit in New York because JP Morgan is involved. A New York judge called it a sham, an end run, accused JP Morgan of acting in bad faith. And it's really a very strange story. No one has yet been able to explain why JP Morgan would betray one of its biggest clients.
So, I mean, bring the New York Times into this. We would expect the newspaper to cover this story in the business section, right?
You would. With major players like that, this is a natural story for a paper with global business scope, the likes of the New York Times. The complicating factor here is that Carlos Slim is one of the largest shareholders in the New York Times company. He bought about 6% of the company in late 2008 and has since upped his stake and has the ability to own about 18% of that company, making him clearly one of the major players there. And my belief is that the Times doesn't know how to play this story just yet because of Slim's involvement.
So, James, I mean, what does this mean for the integrity of the paper then? I mean, are readers going to sort of start questioning whether or not the New York Times sort of picks and chooses what it reports on? And what does it mean for the newspaper's legitimacy then?
Well, I think it's a sad statement to make, but I think readers do have to question it. I can't think of another reason why they wouldn't at least run a blog story or a wire story. I mean, there are ways of handling the story when your boss or your investors are part of it. You can disclose it, you can let someone else cover it. There are ways to handle this, but it's very surprising to me and a little troubling that the Times has yet to do so.
Do you think that the Times will eventually cover it as the lawsuit moves on, or is this something that they just will not touch?
It's really hard to say. When I wrote this a few days ago, and I've been checking the paper every day to see if I need to update what I wrote because maybe they are going to cover it. The lawsuit between JP Morgan and Grupo Televisa is going to go on for some time. So it's possible they'll find an entry point into the story, and at that point we'll have to judge the merits of their coverage from what they do publish. But at least for now, they're at a minimum very late on the story, and I think there's a compelling case to be made that they're basically sitting on it.
Very interesting case, and I'm glad you're here to sort of clarify all those points for us. James Ledbetter, thank you so much for your analysis.
My pleasure.